Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cycle Podcast, where I am delighted to have Sarah back with us. If you had listened to her episode in August, you knew that she was going through some things, and she is here to update us after she had surgery. Sarah, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We're excited to hear about, kind of the things that happened after your story. And again, anyone looking to hear her full journey, it was episode 22, season 2. I'll link it in the show notes. But after we had chatted, we had talked kind of earlier in the year, what's kind of transpired this year. And we know you've had surgery. So after we had our chat, I think you were considering it, but you weren't 100% sure that you were going to do it because it was some travel and we're still in COVID. So what happened?
So the last time we talked, I had just started seeing my endo specialist that I finally found. And so I was feeling pretty good. He recommended that I do strict paleo, which I touched on in the last episode, and I'm still doing strict paleo. I'm almost at 6 months and I feel amazing. And just to give a real quick, if somebody wants to listen to the whole podcast, they can, but I had ablation surgery in September of 2019. So when I came to my endo specialist in March of this year, I was a little leery about jumping right into another surgery because it had only been about 9 months since the last one. So our game plan at the time was I was on the Depo-Provera shot, so I was amenorrheic. I was doing paleo and feeling pretty good with that. So I had things, they were manageable. Everything was manageable. My symptoms were under control.
So I felt like when we chatted, you were like, I'm kind of doing Depo, paleo. You were kind of testing that all out when we had chatted last.
Right. So as time went on, I would say about in May, I started to have some pelvic pain symptoms again. Like I felt like I could tell that the endo was still there from the ablation. Although I'm still not having a period, so I wasn't having excruciating pain, I just noticed more symptoms more frequently. And so I thought to myself, I've been going through this for now 11 years. I want to do it right. And I want my doctor who is treating me now, my specialist, to know what he's working with, because he saw the post-op notes and the pictures from the ablation surgery, but I wanted him to be in there and knowing what he was working with so that we could have a fresh start. And so I messaged him in May of 2020 and asked him if that was an option, if having excision surgery with him and his team was an option. And he said, it's totally up to me. I have to decide what's manageable and what's not for me. And I explained my reasoning that I wanted to kind of have a fresh start with him, and he agreed. So we went ahead and scheduled the surgery for June 16th.
What were some of the symptoms really quick before we go into the surgery? I know you said pelvic pain. Was there anything else just for people who are listening? I always like to have people describe their symptoms because they're so different for everybody.
Sure. So I was having the intermittent pelvic pain, so not related to my period because I'm not having a period because of the Depo.
Was it cyclical though? Did you notice like it was like every 8 days or every 20 days or was it just kind of on and off?
It was kind of on and off at random. And also it was hard for me to tell when my cycle was happening. I tried to keep track of that, but if you're not ovulating or menstruating, it's hard to tell.
Sure.
So it was just random pelvic pain on both sides. I was having a lot of bladder issues. I just feel like my bladder is never empty. So those were probably the two main things. And again, it wasn't to the point where it wasn't manageable.
Sure.
But I felt like, I've come this close to having the right treatment. I'd rather just do it. I know I'm going to need excision surgery at some point because
Yeah.
I know I had ablation, so I would rather just do it and get it over with.
Right.
Was kind of
Right.
my thinking.
Yep. I understand. Okay. So then in June, you go in and you have your surgery.
Yes. So having surgery in the middle of a pandemic was interesting. Um, I'm so thankful that I was able to have it. They scheduled me here in Pennsylvania. It was just after they started doing what they call elective surgeries again.
Sure.
So I was prepared for there to be quite a bit of backlog and that I might have to wait for a while. But they actually got me scheduled in really quickly. I think it was about 3 weeks from the time that I had that conversation with my doctor to the time we scheduled surgery.
Okay. Okay. And tell us a little bit about, yeah, what it was like to have surgery during the pandemic. Like, what were some of your, I'm sure you had concerns going in, and could you have visitors, and maybe just a little bit about that before we get into the actual surgery.
Sure. So it was strange. I was thankful actually that this was my third surgery. So I kind of knew what to expect. I feel badly for people who would be going in for their first surgery because I think it's a lot more nerve-wracking. Not that it gets easier as you go on. Each surgery is its own beast,
Yeah.
but so I couldn't have anyone with me.
Right.
So my mom and my husband obviously drove down with me, but it was kind of like a drive-through. They had to drop me off at the door.
Yeah.
And so I went in. They gave you a mask there, like you had to wear your own in, but then they would switch you out for a sterile one. You got your own pen so that you weren't passing around pens to sign paperwork. Other than the fact that I couldn't have visitors, it really wasn't that much different. The nurses came to speak with you and get you ready. The anesthesiologist came, my doctor came and saw me before the surgery. So that was all pretty standard.
Okay.
And of course, there were different protocols in place. Everyone had masks on and they were being careful. And I had to wear a continuous thermometer on my forehead, like a little sticker.
Interesting. I remember those from like actually being a kid. Do you like
Yeah,
like a little kid, or not maybe
I
continuous, but I remember like those ones like you were in school and they would like put them on your forehead.
See, I don't remember that. So whenever she put it on me, I was like, can I ask what that is? Because it was just like this little black sticker. And it was funny, but everyone was just so nice and so kind. And
Good.
I was nervous because I knew I had never had excision surgery and I knew it was going to be more extensive.
Sure.
Um, but overall, everything went really smoothly and I had no complications, no complications in the recovery room. And they just called my family when I was ready to go and they pulled up and somebody took me out in a wheelchair to get me in the car and away we went. So
Oh, and so they did it fully outpatient.
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then how are you feeling? What did they find? Whatever you're willing to share, how was your recovery?
Sure. So he found stage 2 endo on my right and left uterosacral ligaments. I had stage 2 in my rectovaginal cul-de-sac, which I was expecting because that's where my previous doctor had diagnosed my endo.
Mm-hmm.
But again, he ablated and did not excise. So it was still very present there when I went for my surgery in June. So I'm so glad that I did that because it was there and it needed to be removed properly.
Yeah.
So recovery was definitely, oh, I'm so sorry. I missed a big thing. So on my last episode, I had talked about an IUD. And my doctor suggested that we try to implant an IUD while I'm under anesthesia and see if that goes better for me. And I agreed to that. So I have a Mirena IUD.
Okay. And you're obviously then not doing the depot anymore.
Correct.
Okay.
So I'm off. He had me get one more depot shot after the IUD was placed, just to be sure that I did not have a period.
Okay. Yeah.
While that settled.
So in
So,
June, you kind of had both of those things done.
right, which was a lot of hormones
Yeah.
at the time, but I feel pretty good with the IUD. I still have some cramping, and we're at, I think today's 14 weeks post-op. So I'm taking 800 milligrams of ibuprofen basically around the clock per my doctor's orders to try to hopefully give that some time to settle.
Okay.
So I am trying to stick it out. And as long as I keep up with the ibuprofen and keep it in my system, it does keep the pain at bay.
Okay.
But I did want to mention that I did end up getting a Mirena IUD
Yeah, I think
during surgery.
that's helpful for people listening to know that that's an option if they want to get it during the surgery too, so that way it's just placed when you're already under anesthesia.
Which, if that is an option for you, I would recommend that, because I've had it placed not under anesthesia, which was just absolutely horrific in my experience.
I've heard it's painful. I've heard both ways. I've heard people that didn't have issues, and then I've heard people who they said it was very painful.
Right, I have as well. And I think that if you already know that you have a painful uterus, getting it placed while you're awake is probably not the best option,
Yeah.
because it is painful.
Yeah.
So it is an option to get it placed during surgery. And as I said, it went well. I have had some cramping, but that's been managed with my ibuprofen. So for now, I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to try to make it to 6 months and see where we're at and see if it's settled down by that point.
Have you had a period since surgery?
No, I have
No.
not had a period since November of last year when I started the depot.
Right. But the depot, that lasts 3 months, correct? Roughly?
Correct. Yep. So I was getting those routinely up until my excision surgery and that last depot shot.
Right. So potentially you could be having a period anytime now with
I
the
could.
IUD still.
I could. My doctor's hope is that I won't.
Yeah.
But I have not yet.
Okay.
So we will see what happens.
And so how was your recovery? I mean, how long, people will love to hear, like, how long did you take off work? How are you feeling? You know, how long did you rest for after the initial procedure?
So recovery from excision is much different than recovery from ablation. I could tell that what was done was much more extensive. When I had ablation surgery, I took, I think, a week and a half to 2 weeks off work, and I was back pretty much full steam ahead after those 2 weeks. I still was tired and whatnot until I was fully recovered. But with the excision surgery, I took about 2.5 weeks off of work, and then I went back just part-time at first. I would work about 4 hours a day, and that was a lot. It
Yeah.
was.
And are you working just an office job too? It's not like you're standing and you're
Correct.
sitting, and it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
Yes.
2 weeks. That's incredible. I think I took 12 weeks.
Yeah, so I took those 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, and then I started back half days for quite a while, and that was difficult. And then when I first started back, my employer is very understanding and lenient. I'm very thankful for that. I know, like, I worked a couple days and then I took a day off. I think it was like a Friday, so that I could have a 3-day weekend. So I kind of just listened to my body and did what I could. And there were times when I would have to, like, sit down and rest at work, just rest away from any of my work, even though I'm sitting while I'm working, or put my head down or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was definitely, recovery was much more difficult this time. I would say like weeks 4 to 7 were really hard for me, because at that point your external incisions are pretty much healed, and like everybody kind of thinks you should be getting better, but you're still not healed inside.
Yeah.
And I dealt with a lot of fatigue and not necessarily pain flare-ups, but I would call them flares, and that I would just get like achy, almost like flu-like symptoms, because I could just tell my body needed rest.
Yeah, yeah, probably because it was, it's a lot to go back to work, and even just like getting to work and sitting, and it's so much more than I think we think sometimes
It
too.
is. It is. Even just like having to use your head and think,
Yeah,
and have any sort of mental stress at work. Mental stress puts physical stress on you. So that's a big thing too. So I would say just listen to your body and do
yeah,
what you can.
yeah,
And again, I'm very fortunate to have an understanding employer. I know some people aren't as fortunate to have
yeah,
that. So I was able to kind of play it by ear and see what I felt like doing. Um, and it wasn't until about week 8, I would say, that I started to feel like a human being again. Like I could focus and, try to participate in things. And I did not start exercising. Um, I had an appointment at 6 weeks post-op, and my doctor said it's okay to start doing light exercising, like not any heavy lifting or anything, but you can start walking or maybe doing some body weight work. And I didn't do any of that until, I would say, 10 weeks, because I just knew I wasn't ready. So again, I would just listen to your body. Even if you've been medically cleared to do something, if you don't feel like you're ready to do it, then you don't have to do it.
yeah. I think
Um,
everybody heals differently, and it takes different times, and
Absolutely.
I think that those are all just suggestions of time, but I agree with you. You have to listen to your body. I think actually, now that you say that, I think I did go back to work part-time after 8 weeks, and I remember like driving a mile exhausted me. Like just driving my car to go have a meeting at a coffee shop. By the time I got there, I was like, I need to go lay down. Like
Yes.
you really
Yeah,
have to just see how you feel.
exactly. And again, I don't think you realize how much it takes out of you until it's time to start trying to do things again.
Yeah.
Um,
So
so
after the 8 weeks, you're starting to feel better.
yeah,
Did
so
you go
I
back to
start,
work full time at that time or not yet?
yeah,
Okay.
yes. I would say, I don't remember how long it was before I went back full time. I would say maybe 6 weeks until I was really like steadily working full time hours. Um, and again, that was a lot. That was all I could do. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't really doing anything outside of working, because that's where my energy went.
Yeah.
So I just did what I could do with that. And I would say at about 12 weeks, I believe it was, I started to try to exercise again. I would just do, and at this point, it's the middle of the summer here, so it was also really, really hot this summer in Pennsylvania. And so I would try to walk, and I would do that usually in the morning before it got too warm out, because I don't know if you have this, but I don't tolerate the heat well. Especially as I was healing from surgery, it just really drains me. So I did not try to spend a lot of time outside, like in the heat of the day. So I would start walking. I started out doing like maybe a half a mile at first, really slowly, just on the road near our house. And that felt good. It felt good to move, but not be putting a lot of stress on my body. And I did not start lifting weights again until just a couple weeks ago. And I can tell I've lost a lot of strength just from not doing anything for a few months. But like at first, I was kind of mad, like, you know, oh, I should have started earlier, and I've lost all this strength, and I was in a good place before this. And then you have to just give yourself some grace. Like your body just went through a battle and was trying to heal itself. So it's okay if you're not right back to where you were when you started.
And a big thing, I was very similar into that because was much more into fitness. I mean, I still am, but it's been difficult because the gyms have been closed for so long here.
Yes.
But I had a trainer tell me your muscles have memory and you bounce back so much faster than you think you do, like much faster than like, yes, the first couple weeks are going to be hard and you're going to be sore and you're going to have to go really, really light. And you, like you said, grace and kind of like for me, it was my ego. Like I was like, oh, I
Yes.
know I can do more than this. And then I was like, it's okay. I'm just going to do 2 or 5 pounds and work my way back.
Exactly.
And
It was my ego too. And I'm in the gym, like curling 5-pound dumbbells. And I'm like, I'm kind of embarrassed and I shouldn't be at all. Like everybody starts somewhere and you should never be embarrassed of what you're
never.
lifting, whether you're recovering from surgery or not.
Right.
But it was just an egotistical thing. But you just have to get over it and get in there and do it. So
Yeah. And when I think about the gym, when I felt like that too, it's like, nobody knows what you've been through. You don't know what they've been through. And I promise you, they're more concerned about themselves than they are to even like looking at what you're doing.
exactly. I'm so glad you said that because I'm somebody who, and like I have a degree in exercise science, so I know what I'm doing when I'm working out, and I get really intimidated by people at the gym, and I always have, and that's something that I am working on. And I always tell myself, like, you think that they care a lot more than they actually do. Like they don't even know what you're doing. They're focused on what they're doing.
Yep. I
So
mean, it's such a big point, but yeah. That's great though, that you listen to your body. I think the big points rate for people who are listening is like when you're recovering or even before you're recovering, always like listen to your intuition, listen to your body. If you're not ready to go back to the gym and you can only walk literally 1 lap around your house, that's all you do. You can't feel guilty about it because like you said, your body has just been through a battle. Like it
exactly.
needs time to heal.
Exactly. And there's no like textbook for doing this. There's no textbook for dealing with endometriosis. There's no textbook for dealing with any chronic illness. So like you're not doing it wrong. If you see somebody else that's at 8 weeks post-op and they're able to walk 5 miles, that doesn't matter. It doesn't make your pain or your situation or your body any less valid. So you just have to do what you can do.
Correct. Absolutely. Well, so how are you feeling? I know you're still having a little bit of cramping and you're doing the ibuprofen. How's your stomach with dealing with all that? Are you just making sure you eat every time you take one?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll mention quickly that whenever I had my surgery, my surgeon found that my colon was full of stool the entire way back to my ileocolic valve, like where your large intestine connects to your small intestine. And I asked him why that happened, and he said it's just from years of pain and inflammation and everything kind of being in clench mode. So I believe that the paleo has helped a lot with my stomach just in general and my bowel movements and my digestion. So he has me taking Miralax every morning for 6 to 12 months because I was going to the bathroom, but it was not efficiently emptying, obviously.
Yeah.
So he said we really need to work on getting that cleared out, which he thinks that's a big cause of like nausea after eating and why my stomach bloats all the time and all of those things. So I really haven't had any stomach issues. And as far as the ibuprofen, I just make sure I take it with a meal, and it seems to be handling it okay. I've never really had a problem with ibuprofen before, so as of right now, it's handling it pretty well.
Good. And
Yeah.
how are you feeling day to day now? How many weeks exactly are you out?
I believe today is 14.
Okay.
So I feel really good. I have way more good days than bad, which is just amazing and like makes me want to cry when I say that. And I just started pelvic floor physical therapy yesterday, which I was really nervous about because I'm still having bladder problems. Like it never feels like my bladder's empty. I have to urinate a lot. And I also have pain with sex. And so I was really nervous about starting the pelvic floor therapy because I just anticipate pain.
Yeah.
So I started that yesterday, and I am so glad I went. It was just amazing. Like I said, it was only my first appointment, but she thinks that we're going to be able to make a lot of progress. we talked about scar tissue and that I have some scar tissue because I've had 3 surgeries. And she talked about how we can do the fascial elongation to hopefully break that up some. She thinks that could be contributing to my bladder issues, because if my uterus is kind of stuck on top of my bladder, then my bladder can't expand like it's supposed to. So it signals that it's full when it's not really full. So that's something that I'm going to be working on, going forward. And I'm really excited about it. My therapist and I were just a really good fit. I think it's going to work really well. So I'm excited to kind of learn more as I go through that, because I don't know a lot about pelvic floor therapy. So I'm doing that. I'm still doing paleo. And overall, I feel really good. I haven't had any what I would call endo pain. The only thing I've had is the cramping, which I can tell is coming from my uterus because of the IUD. And my doctor just basically said, it doesn't like it in there, so it's cramping to try to expel it. So that's really the only pain I've had. Of course, I've had some days where my back and legs hurt. He did suggest that I may have some nerve damage, like in my hips, because of the length of time I went undiagnosed. And so I may never be completely pain-free, but for me, I'm in a really good place right now. I'm in a really good place. And so I guess I want to segue into I hope that my story can be a beacon of hope for somebody. Like, even if you've gone 7 years now and you've been to 8 doctors and they've all told you that, it's nothing, don't give up, because if you keep fighting, just proper diagnosis and treatment can absolutely change your life. I am not the same person I was 3 years ago.
Thank you so much for saying that. And thank you for sharing just the beginning, the middle, and, this part of your journey, and coming back on to talk to everybody about, just the difference in recovery and what to expect. I think it's really, really helpful. And I know everyone that's listening really appreciates you sharing and opening up. I know it's not easy to open up, to essentially a bunch of people you don't know, but I think it really makes a difference, and it helps people understand, just kind of the steps with endo.
It does. And I think that it's important for people who are further along in their journey, if they're comfortable, to share their story. Because I wish that when I was 14 and 15, I would have heard some of the things that I have to say today. And I think it's also been healing for me to share my story. And like, I just made a post about this on my blog's Instagram page, because September 17th was my 1-year diagnosis anniversary. And I said 1 year ago, I couldn't have shared my story and told people that there was hope, because I was not feeling that. I was not in that place. But so much can change even in a year. So just keep advocating for yourself, even when it's difficult, and keep fighting, even when you feel like, you've exhausted all of your resources. Because if you can find the right doctor, and if you can push for the right treatment, it is possible to feel better.
Yes, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Sarah. It means so much to us. And thank you for saying also a good plug for, if you want to share your story on the podcast, please reach out to me. I'll link all of my information in the show notes, but always looking for guests on the podcast. And I've reduced my time a little bit on Instagram for people who are listening, so I'll put my email down below. Just needed a little bit of a mental break from that. But Sarah, you want to plug your Instagram for your blog?
Sure. So it's Happy and Unwell. And the whole basis of my blog is that you're allowed to be happy and unwell at the same time. I'm not cured from endo, but I am finally participating in my life again. And there is joy to be found even when you are in pain. So that is the whole basis of my blog. You can find me on Instagram at Happy and Unwell, on Facebook at Happy and Unwell, and at happyandunwell.com. And again, I just want to spread a little positivity to people who are suffering and who are in pain, because I do get it, and I have been there, and I am still there. And so I just want to kind of create a community where we can come together and find the good in it.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for doing that work too and sharing with everybody. It's very, very helpful. Thanks so much for coming on today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.